This is the story of one planet's end and another's beginning. This is the story of one planet's end and another's beginning. It's a strange thing to have to say, but for many millions of people around the world, life has already been derailed by the climate crisis. For them, the future has already begun. They live in a world that is hotter, drier, and more chaotic than the one their parents knew. And in some cases, it's a world without home or work, or even enough food to eat. Today, we're going to hear some of their stories. We're going to see how the climate crisis is playing out across the globe and how it is impacting lives right now. And we'll meet people who are taking action in the face of this new reality. I was born and raised in a coastal city in a country renowned for its beaches and laid-back vibe. But recently, I haven't been able to relax. When I go to the beach, all I can think about is how the water level has risen since my childhood and how much higher it could go. As a kid, I grew up with sea turtles. Every year, we would release baby turtles into the ocean and watch them scurry down the beach towards the waves. Now, the beaches have gone, and so have the turtles. They can't lay their eggs on land that's underwater. It's not just the beaches that have disappeared. The rising waters have swallowed up entire communities. People have had to leave their homes behind. Where will we find somewhere else to go? And I'm not the only one worrying about rising waters. This is the story of Mohammed, who lives 7,000 miles away on the other side of the planet in a low-lying island nation in the Indian Ocean. He remembers when he was young, the ocean was far out there, and the beaches were wide and expansive. Now the ocean has come closer to his village, and people's homes are literally crumbling into the sea. Homes built by his ancestors over generations have been washed away. Nothing remains of them but scattered pieces of wood and corrugated iron. When the storms hit, the wind howls and the rain pours. Many houses get destroyed during the cyclones. My house has survived so far, but every time a storm hits, I worry that it might collapse, that the roof might fall in while we're sleeping. When that happens, where will we go? I ask him, how much longer before your home is gone? He tells me, maybe 2 years, maybe 5. But it doesn't really matter because the shoreline is disappearing bit by bit every day. And if the island disappears, where will we go then? His question hangs in the air, heavy with unspoken fear. In the space of a single generation, the very ground beneath his feet has become less reliable than the shifting sands of the desert. All around the world, the climate crisis is causing coastlines to retreat. Entire communities are being wiped off the map. Homes are collapsing into the sea and island nations are losing their land. The once familiar landscape is changing fast. As the climate crisis worsens, weather patterns are becoming more extreme. Summers are hotter, droughts last longer, and storms cause more destruction. In a world turned upside down, familiar landscapes have become alien. Some places that were once productive farmlands are now too dry to grow crops. In others, raging floods are destroying what little harvest farmers can eke out of the soil. And still, further inland, forests are turning into deserts. Take Bangladesh, a densely populated nation where 40% of the population depends directly on farming. Floods are a fact of life here, but this year, the monsoon rains failed. Farmers like Hasna Begum watched in despair as their crops withered and died. Her fields should have been full of vegetables by now. Instead, they're full of dust. She used to sell her produce at the local market. Now, she has nothing to sell. With no crops, she has no money. And with no money, she can't buy food for her family. Every day, I think about how I'm going to feed my children, she says. Sometimes I don't have anything to cook for them. Even where there is plenty of water, its quality is changing. In the United States, scientists are finding that rising temperatures are causing harmful algae to bloom in lakes, rivers, and coastal waters. The algae form massive harmful blooms that block sunlight and suck the oxygen out of the water, killing off fish and other marine life. These dead zones make the water unsafe to swim in and ruin the livelihoods of those who depend on fishing. And as the oceans warm, invasive species arrive and spread, wreaking havoc in delicate ecosystems. For many, this means saying goodbye to the place they've called home. People are being forced to leave their villages and abandon their way of life. An entire industry can be wiped out overnight and a community can be devastated in an instant. Whole regions are becoming uninhabitable, and people are having to start again somewhere new. On the Pacific island of Kiribati, homes are literally falling into the sea. Traditional ways of life are being swept away and people are packing up and leaving. One man called Tito Tabena has lived his whole life on the island. He remembers when he was young, there were palm trees right up to the edge of the reef. Now those palm trees are underwater. When the storms hit, his island shakes. Homes are destroyed. Families are torn apart and survivors are left with nothing. People have had to flee to the capital city of South Tut, but there isn't much space left there. So many people are leaving Kiribati altogether, heading to places like New Zealand and Australia. There's nowhere else to go, he says. Where will we go when our land is gone? Where will we go when we're lost? So why are some places suffering more than others? A few weeks ago, I visited a kibbutz in southern Israel. A kibbutz is a type of communal settlement established by European Jews in the early 1900s. The members of this kibbutz had lived together in their desert community for 3 generations. But earlier this year, they had to pack up and leave. Their homes were destroyed in the war between Israel and Gaza. This conflict has been going on for more than 100 years. But in recent decades, things have escalated. During the most recent flare-up, thousands of rockets were fired into Israeli territory. People ran for cover in bomb shelters. Schools and businesses closed, and farmers couldn't look after their crops or livestock. The constant threat of attack makes everyday life impossible. For Noga Levin, who runs a nearby organic farm, this is the new normal. She and her husband run a small farm growing vegetables and herbs. But the uncertainty of the situation makes it hard to plan ahead. The rocket attacks are getting worse. She says there are 2 or 3 a day, maybe more. But you'll never know when the next one will come. You just drop everything and run to the shelter. As I walk through the deserted streets of the abandoned kibbutz, I can't help but feel a sense of foreboding. What will happen to this place now? Will anyone ever return? The answer is probably no. This kibbutz is just one example of how the climate crisis is contributing to instability and conflict. As resources become scarcer, competition for them intensifies. That could mean more conflicts and more displacement. And as refugees flee conflict and persecution, they are likely to face hostility in the countries that are already struggling to cope with the effects of the climate crisis. We can all agree that the world is changing. We know that the weather is getting more extreme and that the world we leave to our children will be different from the one we grew up in. But how do we respond to that? Do we turn inward and build walls around ourselves, shutting out the chaos? Or do we work together to address the root causes of the problem? The challenges we face are daunting, but we're not powerless in the face of them. By working together and investing in renewable energy, we can reduce emissions and slow down the global temperature rise. We can also invest in nature-based solutions, like restoring forests and wetlands, which can absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and provide homes for wildlife. We can support farmers in adopting sustainable practices that protect soil and water resources. And we can help communities adapt to the changes that are already happening by building seawalls, for example, or developing drought-resistant crops. Most importantly, we must listen to the stories of those whose lives have already been derailed by the climate crisis, and work to ensure that their voices are heard on the global stage. Because let's not forget, it's their stories that will shape the future of our planet. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please subscribe to the channel and follow us on social media.